Welcome to another episode of Pirkei Avot, and we have a double header for you today. We're going to do chapter 4, Mishnas 26 and 27. We'd like to dedicate this episode, as ever, in memory of Levy, Moshe, Esther, and Elisheva, Yael, Bat Leah, Levy, and also in memory of Rosie, Bat Moshe, Esther. I'm going to hand you over to Michael.
Thank you very much, Rav Mashiach. So, in this Mishnah, we are going to deal with two Rabbonim, Rabbi Yosef Bar Yehuda of Kfar Abavli and Rabbi Meir. So let's give us brief biographies of both. So Rabbi Yosef of Kfar Abavli, which is a village in Galilee, was a disciple of Rabbi Elazar ben Shemua of the same period, although somewhat older than Rabbi Yehuda Anossi. His father was Rabbi Yehuda ben Eli, for whom he quoted a number of teachings, as found in both the Mishna and Gemara. And like his father, Rabbi Yosef taught certain traditions about ancient matters far before his time, e.g., the transmission of esoteric law through many generations before him, a conversation between the Emperor Hadrian and Aquilus, the Jewish convert, held long before his time, how the menorah in the sanctuary was made, and an account about the menorah that Moses made in the wilderness. Very possibly he received these traditions too from his father. In matters of halacha, Rabbi Yosef ben Yehuda differed often with Rabbi Yehuda Anossi, but we also find three instructions of his to this colleague. As I quote, "Do not go out alone at night, it is imprudent, and do not stand unclothed before a burning lamp, it is immodest, and do not enter a new bathhouse, for its flooring may prove unsound." Hence, he was clearly a most practical person of good sense. And Rabbi Meir, who was a Taneh of the 2nd century, was a disciple of Rabbi Yishmael and then of Rabbi Akiva, and he possessed a phenomenal memory. He was a scribe by trade, and we have expounded a few Mishnayot of his. So let's look at. Let's first read both Mishnayos 26 and 27, and then analyze, as they seem to be linked in concept. Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi, the son of Yehuda, Ish Kfar Habavli, the man of Kfar Babli, Omer Halomed Min Haktanim. When one learns from the young, Lama Hu Domer, what is he like? Leochel anavim kehot v'shoteh yayin v'gito. It's like someone who eats unripe grape or drinks new unmellowed wine. V'halomed midhad zakanim lama hu domer, and one who learns from the old, what is he like? Leochel anavim b'shulot v'shoteh yayin yashan. He's like someone who eats ripened grapes or drinks old mellowed wine. And let's dovetail Rav Meir's Mishnah of 27. Rav Meir Omer, Al tistakel bakankan ela b'ma sheyash bo. V'yesh kankan chadash milei yashan v'yashan she'afilu chadash en bo. Rav Meir said, do not look at the jug, but at what is in it. There can be a new jug filled with old wine, and an old one filled without even new wine in it. So it's best to study these two Mishnahs together as they kind of form a symposium on the relationship between age and wisdom. Rabbi Yosef's simile is very true. Only time can bring grapes to fullness and to maturity, and as wine is aged, it mellows and settles, and it acquires a richness of taste and a bouquet of flavor. So you are suggested by Rabbi Yossi to select teachers from those who are older and more mature. In the same spirit, Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar observes, if elders tell you to demolish and youngsters to build, heed the old and not the young. Take apart and do not build, for dismantling by elders is constructive and erection by youngsters is destructive. A typical indication of this is the instance of Solomon's son Rehoboam. This we learn in Megillah 31b. What is the story? When the son of Solomon, Rehoboam, became heir to his father's throne, the people begged him to lighten the demands which King Solomon had imposed on them. So Rehoboam inquired of the old men who were obviously the courtiers of King Solomon, who had served him, and they advised him to listen to the people. But then Rehoboam spoke with his own young friends, and in their arrogance and hunger for power, they convinced him to make the demands on the people even heavier. So try to throw your weight around in order to get some respect that you cannot earn just by throwing your weight around. Just because you're the new heir doesn't mean that your word are very light. It means nothing, and your advice, if it's taken from young people who have no experience, is likely to be the wrong advice. And in the consequence of this is that the kingdom of Israel was split in two. This we learn in Malachim 12, verses 3 to 20. So young people, when they're eager to build and create, can misjudge situations and go to extremes, and in their efforts to build something may only achieve confusion and destruction. But on the other hand, if you look to the wisdom of elders, that wish to demolish and destruct old institutions or liquidation of old forms, don't worry, because they know what they're talking about, and perhaps the purpose of their demolition is to make way for something stronger and better to come. So let's look at what Rabbi Meir said. Do not look at the jug, but what is in it. Rabbi Meir differs completely with Rabbi Yossi. In his view, age alone offers no guarantee that a human being possesses wisdom. It's not the container that matters, but rather the contents. Perhaps a young person has not lived long enough for his wisdom to age and mature, but he may have absorbed his teaching well and has ripened wisdom to begin with. A new cask may contain old wine if that is what the owner puts in it. So if he's receptive and his learning is powerful enough and he's able to hold, learned knowledge, he is a new container with old knowledge, a new container with old wine. There can be a person young in years but old in wisdom. So actually we can look at the experiences of Rabbi Meir to support his claim, or his credo. Years before Rabbi Meir's time, it was necessary to appoint at shorter notice a new Nasi, one who would have had the highest authority over Jewry. And who was appointed? Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. But it is noted and recorded that he was only 18 years old. This we know from Gemara Brachot 27b.
What's the quote?
Well, there's a quotation that says that generation in whose midst Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah flourished was not orphaned. So saying that, we learn that in Chagiga 3 on the base. So that's saying that he was young, but he was extremely capable. In fact, not only did they not suffer by trusting the youth, trusting in his abilities that were perhaps beyond his years, but they flourished. So very, very interesting.
Ben Shivim Shana.
Yes.
Ben is 52, and he was 18. 52 and 18 is 70. I'm 70 years old.
Yeah. But also, on the other hand, it's true that the Torah commands us to respect the aged. We know this from Leviticus 19:32. But Rabbi Meir indicates that you shouldn't have a hard and fast rule only to turn to old people for wisdom. Sometimes you look at the House of Lords, and that is a perfect example. There is no monopoly on sound counsel, and we have to be receptive from whatever quarter it comes. As Rambam quotes his famous words in his Shmona Parakim, in his introduction to his introduction of Pirkei Avot, he says, you must accept the truth from wherever it comes. So if the truth is there, it doesn't matter if a young person is the provider of that truth. You have to respect the truth. You have to respect the truth from where it comes from. As we also learn in Gemara Rosh Hashanah 25b, as someone exclaimed, happy, fortunate is the generation in which the elders listen to the younger ones. So we know also that there's a midrash there that the words of Torah can be likened to water. Just as an older person would feel no shame in asking a younger one for a drink of water, so in matters of Torah would an older man not be ashamed to ask a younger one to teach him a chapter, a paragraph, or posuk, or even anything. This we learned in Midrash Rabbah from Shir HaShirim. So we also find that the Torah's words have been likened to three liquids, water, wine and milk, to teach you just as these three liquids will keep well only in the lowliest of vessels, so will the words of Torah keep well only in one whose mind is humble. So in the end, how shall you decide on the different teachings that we have now put before you in these two Mishnas? What's more valuable, youth or age? There is something called jovanoia, which is a condition that is a fear of the youth. Not a fear that they're going to do something to you, but the fear of the capabilities of youth. Or you're afraid, you're not familiar with the youth of today. It's something that is evident as you grow older, is that new things are become fashionable to children, and they're completely unfamiliar to you. But anyway, how should we look at this? There is a fantastic story in the Talmud. Rabbi Yoshua ben Hanania, he was known for a brilliant mind, even to the Roman emperor at the time. The emperor told him, if you are more wise than the wise men of Athens, go and have a battle of wits with them, and let's see the outcome. Who are these wise men of Athens? They were apparently a mysterious group who remained hidden in their secret academy, which was fanatically guarded to permit no one entering who was unauthorized. But Rabbi Yeshua went to Athens, and how did he had to figure out a clever way to access the academy and gain entry, which he did. But he had a problem. When he entered this academy, there was a dilemma in front of him. The younger men were seated on the upper level of this kind of auditorium of kinds, or some sort of construction, whilst the older men were sat in the lower level. So he thought to himself, if I greet the elders first, the young ones will slay me, saying that we young ones are better than they, but you know, we're sitting above them, so why are you greeting them first? But, he thought, if I greet the young men first, the other ones will slay me, saying, we are greater than they, for we are the elders and they are only youths. So what he did, he compromised, and he called out loudly to be heard by all of them, peace to you, all of you. So, the story continues that there was a fierce clash of wits, in which the Rabbi Yoshua matched brilliance with even greater brilliance, until the 60 wise men of Athens were defeated. We learn this in Gemara Brachot 8b. So what's the moshel of this story? What's the point of this story? It lies in the greeting he gave. This is perhaps the best approach for us to take. Let both youth and age be welcomed and valued for the contribution that each can make to society. And finally, let's talk about the beautiful 12th century hymn of Anim Zemirot that we sing at the end of Shabbos morning prayers, in which I quote, "They saw in thee both old age and youth, age in a day of judgment and youth in a day of battle." So in battles to win knowledge of the Torah or to champion its ideals, youth is to be favoured, or the energy of youth is to be favoured. They have the zeal that you need to promote and to establish communities. In a matter of judgments, though, when delicate decisions need to be made, you need an experienced, mature mind and the qualities of age. That's when age comes into its own and elders are needed. But both are divine attributes and both must flourish if Torah is to thrive.
Fantastic. Finish?
Yeah.
Very good. Okay, Michael, thank you so much. That was a wonderful 2 Mishnah back to back. Next time we convene, we're going to go to Rabbi Elazar HaKapar. And that is a very famous Mishnah. There's a lot to say about that. But until then, we wish you a wonderful and blessed week.